Hi, welcome to episode 21 of the Knitting Expat Podcast. My name is Mina and welcome. Today is the Monday, 3rd of August. Sorry, I almost forgot the date there. 3rd of August. Thank you for joining me today. I'm coming to you from my home in Bahrain. I kind of feel like I ought to mention this every couple of weeks or so for new people who may not have watched my older episodes, but I'm from the UK and I'm currently living in Bahrain with my husband and our 2 cats. So that's in the Middle East, in case you weren't aware, which is fine if you're not. So yes, welcome. Welcome to new viewers, new subscribers. Thank you so much for checking me out and giving me a go, and thank you to all of you who keep coming back every week. Honestly, I'm still surprised that you do, but thank you so much. It's been great to interact with all of you over the last week. Thank you for everyone who's posted a comment on the Ravelry group and sent me messages and interacted with people on Instagram. It's been great. I really enjoy it, so thank you. Yes, so where to find me on that note, you can find me on Ravelry as Mina86. You can find the Ravelry group on Ravelry as the Knitting Expat Podcast in the group section. You can find me on Instagram as Mina Philip, and you can find the show notes for this and all previous podcasts at knittingexpat.wordpress.com. And all of that is linked down below in the description box on YouTube and in the episode thread on Ravelry. And I think it's all linked on the actual main Ravelry page at the top as well, so you can find all my links everywhere. And I also sell project bags on Etsy as Mina Makes, so the Etsy shop is minamakes.etsy.com. Again, that's linked in all the same places. So yeah, should be nice and easy to find everything you're looking for. I just had really quickly a couple of thank yous to other podcasters who've mentioned me in my podcast this last week. Firstly, to Vanessa of the Kill to Craft podcast. Thank you so much, Vanessa. You're so sweet. I mentioned her podcast a couple weeks back, so if you haven't checked her out, make sure you do. She's only got a few episodes out at the moment, but she's very sweet and very lovely to listen to, and it's just been great interacting with Vanessa over the last couple of weeks on Instagram and stuff, and so go check her out. And the second one is Katrina of the Yarn 30 podcast. Again, she's been another one I've been interacting with a bit over Instagram and on Ravelry occasionally and stuff, and her podcast is really fun to watch as well, so make sure you go check her out. She literally does everything fibery related. She sells project bags on Etsy as Cat's Kettles. She is just starting to spin. She dyes yarn, although she's not selling her dyed yarn yet, but I think she will do a custom order for you if you are interested, so you can get in touch with her about that. And she knits and does all sorts of stuff, so her podcast is quite interesting to watch too. And then other podcasts that I've been watching recently and really enjoying is Julie from Diary of a Yarn Snob. Hers is one that I've started watching. I've only watched a couple of her recent episodes. And Lisa of the Fiber Nymph Dye Works podcast. I have no idea why I haven't been watching hers already. I could have sworn that hers was on my list. I think hers is 90% knitting. Sorry, her company is Fiber Nymph Dye Works. The podcast is 90% knitting. I could have sworn I had been subscribed to that a while ago, but I don't know what happened. Anyway, finally got back on that one. And the third one that I've really been enjoying, is new to me, not a new podcast, is Disa's podcast, Disa's Craftwork. I think it's Disa's Craftwork. Yes, she's from Sweden, and her podcast is really lovely, and she's another one that I've been interacting with a lot on Instagram over this last week. We were both on Sleeve Knitting Island. We were cheering each other on, and she was giving me some really good advice about cotton and linen yarns and stuff, so she's been I've really enjoyed chatting with her as well. So moving on, the format for this episode, I guess, is very similar to previous episodes, covering some finished objects, works in progress, / upcoming design stuff. Ooh, new section. Got some design stuff to talk to you about. Knit along news, sewing, project bags related stuff, acquisitions, questions and answers, and then a bit of a week in review at the end. So my one and only finished object for this week is one that I'm so happy to have done, and I'm so happy it worked out as well as it did. It's my dad's jumper or sweater, whatever you want to call it. Here it is. And this is, I can't even get it all into one shot. So excited by that. There you go, it's better. And the colour's pretty accurate about here. And this is knit out of Drops Big Merino. The label here. Drops Big Merino in colour number 3, which I think is anthracite. I think is what it was called, anthracite online. It's basically a dark sort of charcoaly grey colour. And I have to say, when I first looked at it, I don't think I mentioned this before, but when I first looked at this yarn, I was worried that it was going to be incredibly splitty, because it does untwist quite easily and you get all the plies. So I was concerned about that, but it wasn't actually too bad to knit with. And I knit this on 4mm needles with my high interchangeable set. The recommended needle size for this yarn is actually 5mm, but I did a gauge swatch with 5mm, and after blocking it kind of really opened up so you could really see through it. I do sell my gauge swatches, but they're not at hand, so I can't show you what I mean. But I ended up doing it on the 4mm because after blocking it still had a pretty good sort of, not like too dense, but dense enough that you can't see through it. I mean, you can see in the top section where it's just a single layer. You know, it's not too dense, but you still see a bit of light coming through, but it's not so open that you're just going to feel the wind immediately. The only concern I have is about this neckline. I am worried that it might be a bit big, but there again, my dad's not exactly a small guy, so I think he might be okay. But I do have plenty of yarn left over to rip this out and re-knit it if necessary. So as you guys probably remember, as I was knitting this, I was a bit concerned about the size and wasn't sure if this was going to block out or not, but I did knit Perry, my husband, a handbrake cowl out of the same yarn because he really liked it for his birthday, which I haven't given to him yet. But when I blocked that grew quite substantially. I mean, I didn't measure it before and after, but I could just tell by looking at it, it had grown quite a bit. So that made me a little bit more relaxed about how big this was going to get. Now my dad's got, my mum tells me, he's got a 44-inch chest. So when I was knitting this was measuring up to be about 41-inch chest measurement as it was knit before blocking. So it was about 20.5 inches across, which is about 51 centimeters. And I was just like, I hope this will block out enough. So I blocked it, and it blocked out to 57 centimeters across after it dried. And that converts to 22.5 inches, which means it's a 45-inch chest. Perfect. He has 1 inch of positive ease, so it's not like skin tight. And the arms, the length blocked out. I was worried. I for both the body and the sleeves, I knit it a couple of centimeters shorter than I wanted it to be, knowing it was going to grow. So, like I said, they blocked out nicely. I did, from the underarm to the start of the ribbing, I did 16 inches instead of 17. So I did 16 inches, and then I did 15 rows, so I think it's about 2.5 inches of 1x1 twisted rib. So all the ribbing on this is twisted rib. On the neck and the cuffs on the sleeves. So yeah, I've woven in all the ends. I just need to trim them now that it's blocked, and I'm pretty sure that this is going to fit him. So I'm really happy about that. And with this finished now, and the pattern for this, there wasn't really a pattern, it was a recipe by Susan B. Anderson that she did for the Spud and Chloe. They did it for a knit along. And yeah, that's finished. I'm so happy about that. And with that, now, oh, and this is also my entry for Little Bobbin's Purposeful Stash Along. She was doing a sort of like a little knit along for people, for anyone really, who's you bought yarn a while ago specifically for a project, but you hadn't knit it yet. And I bought this yarn to make this jumper for my dad back in, actually I'd bought the yarn a while before, but I got it in May, and I just kept putting it off, and I finally did it. And the purposeful stash along was a good incentive to just get on with it. Now that's done, it took me exactly a month to knit it. I had a week off from knitting on it when I was waiting for more yarn to arrive for the sleeves. So in actual fact, it was only about 3 weeks worth of knitting to finish that, which I'm quite happy about. 3 weeks for a jumper or a sweater seems to be about average for me. I've knit other jumpers, like worsted weight. My first worsted weight jumper that I knit for myself, I did in about 3 weeks. So I'm quite happy with that. And that brings my unofficial stash total to 9,470 meters with that finished. So I only need to finish up a couple of small things and I'll have reached 10,000, which would be quite fun. Yeah, so that's my one and only finished object for this week. And I'll move that out of the way. My next things to talk about are works in progress. So the first thing, so it's not going to fall off, is in one of my Mina Makes bags, my fruit salad bag, and this is my Pond Along socks. And as you can see, it's been quite a bit of progress on these compared to the last time I showed them to you. I think last time I showed you I only had one cuff. Sorry, there we go, let's get that out of the way. So I guess technically that's the right way up. So there we go. This is the front. Not that there's much difference at this point, but I am at the heel turn now, so I'm ready to put in my heels. And a little needle cozy from Georgina from You Who Knits. Thank you for sending me that. Yeah, so these are the Pond Along the Pond colorway by Berenvuller. Jeez, Vicky, I'm so sorry. I am terrible with the. This is the card for the yarn, and it's barefoot sock in the Pond colorway, and that's 80% merino, 20% polyamide. That's 400 meters in 100 grams. There we go. Don't know how well you can see those details. And this is for the knit along that I believe it's Herbstblatt Regina podcast. Regina from Germany as well, who is hosting the Pond Along knit along, which is basically knit whatever you want using the Pond colorway by Berenvuller. And I am just doing vanilla socks so the yarn can show off its loveliness. And this is, I did 20 rows twisted rib, and then I've done an 80 row stockinette body, which is sort of standard now for my socks. I quite like that length on my socks. 100 rows for the legs, including the cuffs, is a good length. And then I'll be doing a fish lips kiss heel, and then I'll just knit the foot and do a rounded toe for the end, which is what I like. And I'm knitting these on 2.25mm needles. They're my Knit Pro Symphonies, and I'm using a 64 stitch count because this is actually quite a thick fingering, which is nice. It means they're extra squishy. But because it's a thicker fingering, I won't need the extra stitches, I don't think. It seems to be, I mean, I've tried these on and they fit more than perfectly. And yeah, and as you can see, plenty of space in there for yarn and project and everything. And so these, a little reminder, this is my wide sock wedge. So this is really good for 2 at a time sock knitting, and even for shawls, it's a pretty decent size. So that's that. Oh, I also knit on these at the cinema the other day. We went out, and I actually find just knitting stockinette socks in the cinema is really easy. I did about 23 rounds, I think, during the film. We went to see Ant-Man, and I knit 23 rounds during the film, so that was pretty good going. I quite like that. Got a lot of that knitting done then. Right, next up. And this is one of my prototype bags that I did really early on. This is my giant elephant bag, which I really like. And in here I have my Viajante shawl by Martina Bem. Let's see if I can find the picture to show you. Okay, it's the Viajante shawl cowl thing. And this bag smells like lavender because I've got one of my sachets in here. And I've got my notions in my lovely notions pouch by Tanya. Thank you. Tanya, sorry. Thank you so much, Tanya. I love the kitty cats. So sweet. And yes, so this is where I'm at with the Viajante. I think that's how you pronounce it anyway. Trying not to drop any stitches as I show this to you. So this is the shorter end, and then this is the longer edge on this side. And you can see that marker, that was where I was last week. This is where I am now. And let me see if I can show this better to you by doing this. There you go, you can sort of see better how this is coming up. There we go. And I've noticed that depending on obviously the number of stitches and where I am, it changes how the yarn pulls. So I started just after the garter stitch section, it does like that lovely sort of arrow pulling stripe, and then it gets all variegated again, and then it pulled again here. You can see that there. And then it went all variegated again, and now it's starting to pull again. Don't know how well you can see the colours. Anyway, I'm really liking how this is knitting up. It's really fun colours. I love the colours. And like I said, this is I'm knitting these on 3.5mm needles. Stitching up pretty well. I am using Wool Mize lace yarn. Don't know if you can tell, but this is a lot smaller than it was last week. I had a target to knit 50 grams a week in order to be able to finish this in time for when we go to New York, and I knit 48 grams this week, so I think I'm doing okay. I can make that up. And I got incredibly distracted by other stuff over the weekend, otherwise I probably would have knit more than 50 grams on this one, but a bit more about that in a bit later. So my target next week is, this is now 227 grams, the ball. So my target for next week is to get it to 175 grams. And yeah, I mean, Viajante in Portuguese means traveller. And like I said, we tend to travel quite a bit, having lived abroad. And I really want this for when I'm on planes, because I do tend to get cold quite a lot on planes and stuff, and I actually tend to wear, I almost have like an outfit that I have for when I travel for planes and stuff. I have really nice comfy wide leg yoga trousers, and I tend to they're grey, and I tend to just wear a grey t-shirt with a tank top underneath, because I get really cold on planes. And then usually I have like another grey or neutral coloured hoodie, so I'm generally pretty neutral all over when I travel. I'm not sure why, it's just how it seems to work out. And so I think this will add a really nice pop of colour to a sort of neutral outfit, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, looking forward to getting this done for when we go to New York. And I'm really going to have to keep on top of knitting on this and making sure I get it done, in order to make sure I can get it done in time, which I think should be fine. But I'm getting so distracted by a lot of other things that yeah, I can't really let the ball drop on that one. I don't want to either, that's the thing. It's not, but it is very sort of monotonous, straight knitting, not a lot happening, which is really good for just when you're watching TV, or later in the evening when you don't really have the brain power to focus on anything else. My next work in progress, it's not actually a work in progress yet, but it will be very, very soon. And I've been told by Maria now that I can actually say what it is and what the pattern is called and show it on the podcast now, because she showed it on her last episode. And it's a test knit I'm doing for her for some mittens that she's designed called Meristem. And I'm trying to see if I've got a picture of something to show you. No, she doesn't actually have any pictures of the actual mittens properly, so you can see in her pattern. But I'm going to be knitting them. As you can see, they're not on the needles yet. I'm going to be knitting them on 2.75mm needles. These are my higher sharps interchangeables. And I'm going to be magic looping them, if you couldn't tell. I did do the test gauge swatch for them. A little gauge swatch in the yarn that I'm using. And this is this sort of purpley lavender colour is a Corridel single ply that Nina from the Fuzzy Love Knots podcast sent me from Chile. So that was really exciting, and I'm really happy that I can start using that. And this is the yarn in the cake. It's a bit squished, but a really fun yarn to work with. And I soaked the swatch in a bit of conditioner, which has significantly softened it up. I mean, it's not something I would probably wear around my neck, but it's fine for gloves. And it should be pretty hard wearing. I mean, Nina says she uses this yarn to make socks, and it's a single ply Corridel with no nylon in it, so it must be pretty hard wearing. I've never really knit with Corridel before, so I'm interested to see how that works up. So I did my gauge swatch, and the gauge that Maria calls for in her pattern is 30 stitches over 4 inches, and I'm getting 29 stitches over 4 inches. I think I should be okay, because I think if I went down a needle size, I think my gauge would end up being too tight. I don't think it'd be loose enough, but I think for mittens I should be okay. And I'm testing out the larger size because I have larger hands, and she actually contacted me for some measurements in my hands to help her out with sizing for the larger sizes, so I offered to test it for her as well to see how they fit. And this is in my Exploding TARDIS bag from Girl with the Rabbit on Etsy. I really love this fabric, it's really fun. And that pretty much sums up my works in progress that I can show you. Next up is the design segment. I have 2 designs underway. I mean, one is actually being knit, and the other one I did extensive swatching, shall we say. And I've pretty much figured out the pattern for both of them. This one will be coming out first, hopefully sometime in September, maybe earlier September, I'm not sure. It's a shawl, I can tell you that much. It's a shawl knit on the bias for this one, and it's a 2-colour. This is the one with the rainbow yarn. Actually, you know what? I'll give you a little sneak peek. I'm not ready to show it to you yet because I'm still not sure if I'm going to change some of the design aspects of it, but colourful. Give you a little peek. So that's coming along nicely, and I'm really loving how that's turning out so far. So once that's finished, I'll be able to show it to you. And my second one, I'm not going to show this one to you because this one is actually a collaboration with someone else. And until we get things a little bit more sorted, I don't want to give anything away. This one I'm actually really excited about because I had one idea, and then sort of, I think Maria mentioned this in her last podcast, is that when you get one design idea and you start working on it, you're swatching on it, and then you get another idea and you just got to cast it on straight away. That's kind of what happened with that one. The idea for it sort of just came to me it was something I'd been thinking about, but then it suddenly sort of, I kind of got a very clear idea of where I was going to go with it on Thursday afternoon last week, and then I pretty much spent the rest of that week, Thursday afternoon, Friday and Saturday, which is our weekend over here, pretty much spent the whole time just working on that swatch. And it's another shawl, and I pretty much knit up a mini shawl in about a day, as a larger-ish swatch, and I sort of like sketched out some other ideas. So this is actually going to be developed into hopefully what will be my first sort of collection of patterns, which will be really fun. There'll be sort of like it's not just a shawl, there'll be other items as well. So once I figure that out a little bit more, I'll be really excited to show some of that to you guys and explain a bit more about that in the future. I'm not ready to share them yet, not because I don't want to or anything like that, it's just because I'm still developing the ideas. I don't really want to show you something that may not end up being what it's going to be. Does that make sense? I think once I'm a little bit further along in actually solidifying the ideas, I'll feel more comfortable showing it to you. But yeah, so hopefully those are coming soon. And so next up we have knit along news. Not much to say there really. The Sunrays cowl is still ongoing, and this is the blue version of the shawl. And this is going until the 23rd of August, so you still have plenty of time to knit the shawl and enter if you would like to. I am thinking of extending the deadline. I'm not entirely sure yet if I'm going to do that or not. I guess I'll wait and see how people are doing, and if I feel, there's only 3 finished objects in the finished object thread at the moment, but I know by looking through the chatter thread, I believe there are at least another 10 shawls being knit, so I'm going to give people as much time as possible to enter, because there are some really lovely prizes for this one, and I want to give you guys the best chance to enter, really. So yeah, so if you are knitting one of these shawls for the knit along and you feel like you might need a little bit more time, do let me know. Leave a comment in the chatter thread or send me a message, and I'll, because I am already thinking about potentially extending it by a couple of weeks. So let me know if you think that would be a good idea. And the second knit along that we've got going at the moment is the rainbow cowl, and that's going until the 30th of September. So yeah, and there are so many fun finished objects in the finished object thread at the moment. So if you're having a down day and need a bit of cheering up, go check out the finished objects thread, because it is really cheerful and really happy. Yeah, and that's ongoing, and we're going to have at least 3 prizes for that, and they're going to be little prize packages, so there'll be more than one thing for each prize. So that's going to be really fun. I'm still waiting on a couple of things to come through for prizes, but once those reach me and I have everything that I'm going to be receiving for it, then I can figure out exactly what's going to be in each prize package, and I can share that with you. Hopefully that'll be in the next couple of weeks. Next up, sewing and project bags. I have, like I said, I had planned on getting some project bags finished up over the weekend to show you today and release this week, but I got completely sidetracked with design ideas and like just this fit of frenzy over that. So that kind of got put aside, but I did do actually a bunch of sewing yesterday. And so I have about, at the moment, I think about 30 project bags in the final stages. They just need the corners done and final finishing stuff done, and that's a mix of my sort of zippered project bags and drawstring bags. And you may or may not have noticed or realised in the last update that I had a couple of drawstring bags in the update. It was sort of like a trial just to see how it would go and see if people liked them or not, and so I think a good portion of the next update is going to be drawstring bags, as long as I get them finished, and just see how that goes. And I have a few other project bags that have the zippers added. I just need to do the next set. So there's going to be a big update, I think, in the next week or so. I'm hoping to have these done and at least have a... Basically, there's either going to be an update at the end of this week or around the beginning of next week. I'll announce it on Instagram and on Ravelry, so keep an eye out in those places for news of the next update. So this will probably be a big update, and probably the main update. I may do another smaller one between now and the end of August, but we will see. Just there's a lot going on, and then we're going away in September. So the last thing, I don't really want to do an update at the end of August only to leave for 2 weeks and not be able to post bags and stuff, so I'll have to figure out the timings on that. But on the sewing front, I did do a project bag for me. And this is an itty bitty drawstring bag. This is not one that's going to go into the shop. This is not a size that's going to go into the shop. But I did realise that I hadn't actually shown you any of my drawstring bags finished, because they went in the shop and they sold before I did the next podcast. So I use a sort of a cotton cord for the drawstrings rather than a ribbon or fabric ties. And they're not interfaced, but they are fully lined. But if I added interfacing, it would be too stiff, and it doesn't really work for a project bag, for a drawstring bag, I mean. So this is a little itty bitty dinky one. This would be good for like a hat, or if you knit socks one at a time. It might be a little bit tight for 2 at a time socks, but it's a really cute little itty bitty drawstring bag. And I really love this fabric, so I had to have a small project bag for myself. I had to keep a little bit of it for myself. The orange paisleys. I do actually have more of this fabric now. I'm going to got some more over the weekend, but I'll talk more about that later. So yeah, I just want to give you guys an idea of what my drawstring bags look like. The ones that will be going into the shop will be bigger than this, but I think there's going to be 2 sizes. There'll be like a medium and a large size. So that's just to give you guys an idea on that front. And next, acquisitions. Again, there's a lot more to show you this week than I'd anticipated. Not quite as much as last week, but still more than I thought there would be. Sorry, need a little sip. So first up is a package I actually picked up this morning, and I'll explain why I picked up a package this morning in a minute. But this came to me all the way from Germany, from Anja, who was Süchtig, I think, on Instagram before. She's Anja loves to knit, I think. Double check that now. Sorry if I got that wrong, Anja. So we did a minis swap, and boy does she spoil me. First of all, she sent me a ridiculous amount of tea, like so much tea, half of which I have no idea what it is. It's going to be interesting. She sent me 2 of these coconut chai, which sounds really interesting. There's this one, which, there's 2 of these. I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce what that is. I have no idea. I may have to look this up. I believe this is some kind of berry and mint flavour. Yep, and there's 2 of those. Then there's some bunting tea. So there's 2 each of these ones. Again, no idea what these are, what flavours these are, so it should be interesting to try them out. And finally, she sent me 2 of these ones. Oh, sorry, it's the back. There we go, 2 of these ones. I don't know how well you can see that. Again, no idea. So this will be fun and interesting to try out. And then, on top of all that, she sent me a lovely note, which I won't show you, but she sent me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then more, 6, 7, 8, 9, oh geez, I can't even hold them all up. Ugh, I'm dropping them all over the place. 10. This one's got a bit of blue in it, which is quite fun. She sent me 10 different minis, which is incredibly generous of her. Thank you so much, Anja. Yay! So that'll be going into my also picked up this little basket this last week, minis basket. And there we go. Those are all the minis I've got to actually add into my blanket now. So these 10 are gotta find a way to add this into the basket without. I'll just plonk them on top for now and sort that out later. In other sort of acquisitioning news, on the topic of that basket, I went when I went to pick up that basket, I went to a store called Daiso. I'm pretty sure you have that in the States, or at least in some parts of the States, but if you don't, it's basically a Japanese dollar store. And so there's lots of little cutesy Japanese things, which actually, I really like that shop. It's good for a lot of little knickknacks and things that would just be more expensive anywhere else. But I went to get some more of those little pill boxes, like I showed you, that I use for my notions. They didn't have the exact one that I'd got before, but they had these ones, which I really liked. So I picked up a few of these. And these are great, and they're completely see-through, so you can see what you have in them. And what I store in these now are, like in this top section, I have my safety pins, I have a cable connector, and some darning needles, a couple of different sizes. And then I have my key and stoppers for my interchangeables here. And then I use one pocket for one slot for removable stitch markers and one for regular stitch markers. And these are the ones that Andy from Knitting Expat sent me. And then this one, similar sort of thing. Except in this one, I also have one of my little teeny tiny scissors that Sophia sent me in a swap that we did. And these little ones. So perfect little snips for yarn. And yeah, and the good thing is all of these, you know, they're allowed on planes. The other thing I found, so people were asking me where I got these little snips from. I have no idea. Sophia sent those to me. I know Hire do the little snips, but the other little scissors that I just picked up from a local craft shop here, and they're sort of like, they fold up, and so those are quite good for traveling with as well. But when I was at Daiso, I found these little guys. These little, I don't know how well you can see that, these little scissors. And so they were about 700 fils, so a little over £1 each. You see the little tip? If you don't know what these are baby scissors, baby nail scissors. So, you know, these are for cutting little baby nails. So they're rounded on the end, so they're not sharp. The blade is absolutely minuscule. It is so tiny. So there is going to be no issues taking this on a plane, in case anyone is looking for scissors they can take on a plane. And they are sharp enough to cut yarn. To be honest, it doesn't have to be that sharp to cut anything, to cut yarn. But I tested this out, and it cut the cardboard packaging that it came in, so I figured that would be fine. And these work great, and it comes with a little cap. There you go. So I now have, I think, 5 notion sets like this, with either scissors on the outside or actually the little one that fits into the case. So now I have one of these in each of my project bags. Well, I have 4 technically. The 5th one I keep in my bag with my Cozy Memories blanket, which again I didn't show you this week because I hadn't done any work on it. So that's one notion set sits in there, and then I have the other 4 for the projects that I have on the go, because if I have any more than that, I mean 3 is usually my limit, and I have 3 whips at the moment, 4 technically if you count one of the design projects. So that's kind of 3 is my good number. Anything more than that, and I start to get a little bit antsy about it. It starts stressing me out a bit, but I'm gonna be fine. It'll be okay. Right, sorry, back to acquisitions. I got a little bit sidetracked there. The next thing that came along was another package from Andy from Knitting Knits. Now, the first package she sent me, I got just a little last week, I think it was, when I showed it to you. She was really, because she'd sent that back in June, yeah, towards the end of June, 20th of June, she sent it to me. And after a few weeks of not having her card, after a few weeks and it hadn't arrived yet, she started to get a bit worried. So she said she was going to send me another one, hoping that this time it would actually get here. And soon after she sent the second package, the first one showed up. So she said that if the first one did show up, then I could basically just keep the second one, or I can use some of it for giveaways. So let me show you what she sent me. First of all, I can't even get over how cute and fluffy that is. It is just the fluffiest little alpaca fuzzball thing ever. Love the card. Thank you. And she sent me some more of these really cute alpaca sticky labels, some sort of rainbowy coloured labels. She sent me one of her finger row counters, which is really cool. She sent me some more minis, 2 sets of minis this time. This was the one that she included in the first package, and this is a completely different set. She sent me another one of her BFL socks. This one is more yellow than the first one she sent me. The first one she sent me had more blues in it. And she sent me another one of her gradient sort of sock blanks in the purple to grey colourway. This one's a bit more speckled and has the blue in it, which the other one didn't, which is quite cool. And she sent me another one of these sock blocker types keyrings. That's the one. Sock blocker keyrings with the instructions how to knit a sock for it. And she sent me more markers, and these ones, open the box, are quite cool. I don't know if you can tell, but they're little, you can see that yellow one, they're little skulls, like rainbow coloured skulls. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this. I'm probably going to do like a tiny little prize package with some of the extras in here. The minis, the rainbow stitch markers, probably throw in the row counter, because I don't generally use row counters myself. I do have one which I use occasionally, but I tend to just use it to keep a tally. Little sticky label. I think I might put a little package together from the lovely things that Andy has sent me to use as a prize for something. I haven't quite decided what yet, but thank you so much, Andy. And that was so sweet of you to send another one. Very much appreciated. Thank you so much. You really didn't have to do that. But yes, there's going to be a really lovely Andre Sunitz themed prize coming along for you guys at some point. So keep your eyes out for that. I kind of have an idea in my head, but we'll see. We'll see how that works out. And the last thing I have to show you in acquisitions is something I actually ordered. It came in a lovely green bag, and this is yarn I ordered from Vine. I finally caught one of her updates, and I really wanted, from one of the first episodes of hers that I watched, I saw her Outlander colorway, which I really fell in love with. I don't watch Outlander, I've never watched Outlander or Poldark even, but I really liked the colorway. I thought it was beautiful. This is her card from Vine Yarns. All their information on the back there. I hope this comes up the right way around for you guys afterwards. I don't think I've ever really checked. I assumed it does, but I hope so. So I ordered, and a couple of weeks ago she had an update, but I think she said that her yarn order hadn't come through, so she didn't update, and she had some what was it? She has some yarn left over that she no longer stocks, like bases that she no longer sells, and she had some left over, so she dyed those up. So these are both of the ones that I got are actually in bases that she doesn't carry anymore. So I got one on her silky base, which is 70% superwash merino, 30% silk, and this is the Stella Banshee colorway, and this is a single ply yarn. You can see that there. And I really like this one, even though it's got quite a bit of pink in it. And you guys know pink is not really my colour, but I really like it because I think it's quite subtle in this. It's not too much pink. Like, I really quite like her fairy hair colourway, but I think it's just too much pink for me. If I got it, it'd be to knit something for someone else. And it's really soft and squishy, this one. I really like this. Really happy with that one. And like I said, I got her Outlander colourway, which is beautiful. Again, blues and oranges. It's just, other than purple and green, put blue and orange together in a skein of yarn and I'm all over it. Look how pretty that is. And this is in her Footsie base, which, like I said, she doesn't stock this anymore. And this is 80% superwash BFL and 20% nylon. It's a card. So yeah, and I haven't actually knit with any BFL yet, but I'm building up a stash of it. This one's BFL. This one's BFL cashmere and silk, actually. This will make some really luscious socks. But yeah, excited about that. But that's not all Kristen sent me. Kristen was so sweet. She threw in some little goodies as well. She sent me some lovely teas to try out. There's caramel and coconut, licorice spice, and pucker love, which has chamomile, elderflower, marigold, licorice root, lavender, and rose. Should be nice. She sent me a couple of sweet suckers, and she sent me a couple of her minis. She sent me one on her succulents base, which is this one, which is really cute. I really like the colour. It's a nice sort of minty green colour. I don't know how well that's showing up. It's a little bit more green in person than it's looking on camera at the moment. And she also sent me one in her reflector colourway, and this is on her blitzed base, which is the one with Stellina in it. I'm not sure. And there you go, you can sort of see the sparkle up here. So that'll be fun to add to my blanket, and that's going into my little basket of minis before I forget. Yeah, that is it for acquisitions. I say that like there was nothing, there was a lot. Thank you so much to Andy and Anya for your lovely packages, and to Kristen for the lovely extras and for the lovely yarn, because anyway, so on to questions and answers. So last week's question, I asked you guys about any sort of interesting reactions or funny sort of reactions you guys have had to your knitting, like knitting in public or just from people you know, and just things like that. And there were some really fun comments, some really interesting ones, some a bit more frustrating than others, so experiences, and a lot that I've shared as well had similar sort of reactions and things. But there was one really lovely comment left by Linda Shields on Ravelry, and I've had the pleasure to meet Linda a couple of times. She's lived in the Middle East, in the region, for quite a few years, and when I met her she was living in Kuwait, and she came over to Dubai a couple of times and came to some of the knitting meetups that we had with our knitting group in Dubai, and I got to meet her then. And she's really lovely, really lovely. She's moved back to the States now, but anyway, so her comment, and I'm going to read it out to you from my laptop because it was really sweet and I think you guys should hear it. So she says, sorry, I'm looking over because I'm reading it off my computer screen. She says, one reaction to me knitting socks while waiting in an airport I will never forget was one time I was returning to Kuwait from Dubai on a late evening flight. The young man sitting next to me in the terminal was returning to a job he had in Saudi. He was very interested in my knitting and kept looking at what I was doing. I struck up a conversation with him when he pulled out his phone to take a picture of the sock I was working on. He told me that his grandmother used to knit, but only sweaters. The young man asked all sorts of questions. How long does a sock take? Why use special sock yarn? Isn't that too much time and money just for socks? He couldn't understand knitting socks when it was so easy and cheap to buy them, and nobody sees your socks anyway. We both had a very long wait for our respective flights, but just as they were starting to board the plane to Saudi, I finished the pair of socks. I immediately gifted the socks to the young man. He was flabbergasted and at first wouldn't take them. Finally, I urged him to put them on and enjoy his new pair of handmade socks. He did, and his comment was, "Amazing, I could never buy socks like these." He put back on his shoes and departed to his plane back to Jeddah wearing the new socks. Another convert to handmade socks. I think that was the sweetest thing ever. That was so adorable, and honestly, the couple of times that I had met Linda, she was working on socks. She says she always has a pair of handmade socks in her purse to gift to people randomly here and there. So I think that's just such a sweet sentiment, such an amazingly awesome story as well. So thank you, Linda, for sharing that. It was very, I loved hearing it, and I hope you guys enjoyed hearing it too. So I had one question this week from a viewer, from Diane47, who's Diane from Florida, and she asked about the magic knot. She said I mentioned it in the episode last week, with when I did the Frankenstein Rose City rollers that I showed you guys, and she was asking if I could give you guys a tutorial on how to do that. I'm not going to because frankly, after the debacle I had last week trying to do the zipper tutorial for you, I've decided I'm not going to show you on camera, but I will link you to a really good magic knot tutorial by Jane Richmond, I believe, on YouTube. Hers is one that I refer back to if I forget how to do the magic knot. I was actually shown how to do the magic knot by someone who's now a very dear friend of mine, Marina, in Dubai. The very first knitting meetup I went to in Dubai, I'd probably only been knitting about 3-4 months at the time. I was working on this scarf, and I bear in mind it was like July in Dubai and I was working on a super bulky scarf. I don't know what was wrong with me, but anyway, Marina I came to the end of a ball and she showed me how to do the magic knot. So thank you, Marina. But like I said, I have a tutorial video by Jane Richmond, who's also a really lovely designer on Ravelry, but her tutorial is really good. So I will link that in the show notes and in the episode thread for this episode on Ravelry, so you can have a look at that there. It's much clearer and a lot better than anything I could show you. So check that out if you're interested in how to do the magic knot. For the most part, I try and use the magic knot on yarns that either aren't superwash or aren't super slippery. Like I wouldn't use it for I wouldn't really use it for anything that had silk in it, because I just think the silk is too slippery. Or anything where I'd probably only use it on things for myself. I didn't use the magic knot on my dad's sweater or jumper. I weaved in all the ends because it's something I'm going to gift to him. It's probably going to be machine washed, it is super washed, but also that yarn was really quite slippery to knit with, even though it was 100% sort of like merino wool, but it was super wash and it was quite slippery yarn to work with. So I felt that, you know, if one of those knots failed, then that jumper would be pretty much ruined, or it would take me quite a bit of work to fix it. So I didn't want to risk that. So I used it in the Frankenstein rollers because they are socks for me. That I wasn't going to gift them to anybody else, but it is a really good thing. It is really good. I would recommend using it on yarns that aren't superwash more so than anything else. But that's just me. It's, you know, when it works really well, and it will work on pretty much anything. But I always have that fear that, you know, in case I did it wrong and it failed, then I don't really want to use it on something that I was keeping for myself, if that makes sense. I probably wouldn't use it on something I was gifting, but I know loads of people who do use it all the time and they swear by it. So check it out, give it a go. It's definitely a time saver for weaving in ends. But on the flip side, I don't actually mind weaving in ends. I don't find it a pain, I don't find it annoying. It's just part of the process for me. So like I said. But for the Frankenstein rollers, I didn't really want to sit there and weave in 20 ends for each sock. So in that instance, it made sense to do it. So my question for you guys this week is, what's your favourite cast on and bind off method? I mean, for me, I pretty much universally always use the long tail cast on, pretty much everything. Unless I'm doing toe up socks, in which case I do Judy's Magic cast on. I've done the pinhole cast on a couple of times. I actually did it for the first time on the shawl that I've got up on the cupboard there. That's the angel shawl that I knit, I think over New Year's, when I was sat in bed with a broken leg. I talk about that in my very first episode. It's not actually on Ravelry. I need to set up a project page for that one. But yeah, so that's my favourite cast on, is the long tail cast on. And my favourite bind off is Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off. I will use that for most things, unless a very specific bind off is called for. But I will use Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off for pretty much everything, because a regular bind off for me is too tight. A suspended bind off for me is too tight, or I have to really concentrate to get it loose enough. And sometimes I will use the knit two together bind off, which is a bit quicker than Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind Off. So if it's for something that doesn't need a lot of stretch, then I might use that. But for ribbing, especially for ribbing, I love Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind Off. As long as you don't do it too loosely. It's actually the one bind off, it's the one stretchy bind off that you have to actually pull tight as you're doing the stitches to keep it looking neat, but it's still really stretchy. So I think that's where people kind of go a bit wrong with it, is they try and do it loosely and then it looks a bit messy at the end. Anyway, that's me. What's your favourite cast on and bind off? And do you use them for specific projects only, or do you use them across the board like I do? I mean, I do use different bind offs occasionally if the pattern calls for it, and I think it would be better than the one that I would normally use, but for the most part, 99% of the time I'll use long tail cast on and Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind Off. And that pretty much covers the whole knitting portion of this episode. The last bit for you that I was going to cover now is a bit of a week in review. Not too much to talk about. We had to take our car in for a service yesterday. I took it in yesterday morning and I actually got it back this morning, which was really, really good. I went in first thing in the morning and dropped it off, and they actually, obviously I dropped off the car, I don't have a car to get back home, and one of the people there actually gave me a lift back, which was really nice of them. And then they called me in the afternoon to say the car's ready. I was like, oh, okay. It was really quick. I don't usually, back in Dubai, it would have taken at least a couple of days to get the car serviced, so they must have been a bit quiet, not had much on. So this morning, Perry dropped me off before he went to work, and I picked up the car and came back. So I was up since like 6 a.m. this morning. So I've been awake for quite a while now. But that's good. I'm glad I got the car back. I was feeling a bit, I was getting a bit worried. I wasn't sure how long it was going to take. But that's why I got to go to the post office this morning, because I was already out of the house. I was supposed to have a trip to Dubai sort of last week or this week for work, but that got cancelled, so I'm not going anymore yet. I will be going at some point, I just don't know when yet. We'll see. I don't know if it'll be before New York or after at this rate. Like I mentioned, I had a bit of a design knitting frenzy over the weekend, which is great. I'm kind of, like I said, I've figured out some design ideas. I need to spend some time over the next week actually sitting down and writing up the patterns, or drafting the patterns at least, and getting them ready so then I can start contacting people for test knitting soon, hopefully. Yeah, like I mentioned, we went to see Ant-Man at the cinema, which was quite funny actually. Not necessarily my favourite of all the Marvel movies, but it wasn't terrible. We stayed at the end because the Marvel films, they always have, what Perry calls an Easter egg, or like extra scenes at the end after the credits. So we stayed and we saw, the fact that, the scene came up and we saw that, and then we went to leave. And then as we were leaving, we were walking out and Perry was checking his phone for something or other, and anyway, suddenly he grabs my arm and basically drags me back into the cinema, because there's a second end scene after the credits. So basically, I think he was looking it up on Google or something, and realised there was a second end scene, and basically dragged me back into the cinema. We sort of sat there. We still had plenty of time to wait for the scene to come back, for the last scene. So that was a funny moment of sorts, I guess. We popped into the fabric market as well. I had to get some stuff, and it was sweaty. It was so hot and humid, and ugh. I mean, we went at night, so there would at least be no sunshine. But the problem here is, during the day it's hot, and at night it's hot and really humid. Like, humidity really ramps up in the evenings. But that pretty much covers our week, really. Hasn't been that much going on. I've been doing a bit of sewing in the last couple of days. A lot of knitting has been happening. That sort of really sums it up, really. It hasn't been too exciting. Our dates for New York are set now. I'm going to be in New York from the 6th to the 13th of September, so a week. I'm going to be there for a week. And the days that I'm going to be free, as in, Perry's going to be busy with studies and school and stuff, is I'm free from the 9th to the 12th. So there've already been a couple of people who've been in touch to say that, to let them know when I'm going to be there, and if they're available, they'll come and meet me and stuff, which would be great. But yeah, so if you are in the area around New York and you would like to meet up, or just for a coffee, or to go yarn shopping or whatever, I'll be more than happy to meet up with you, hang out for a bit. It'd be nice actually, because otherwise I'll be in New York on my own. I'll probably be popping into work one day. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but the company I work for are based in the States. They're actually, the head office is across the river from Manhattan in New Jersey. So last time I went to New York, I popped into the office and said hello to everyone, and it's actually quite nice. It was the first time I got to meet a lot of the people that I work with, technically, but they're people that I communicate with all the time via email, but I'd never met them in person because they were there and I was here. So it was nice to finally be able to put faces to the names and to the emails that I've been receiving and sending. So I'll probably be popping in to say hello to them again at some point as well. So yes, 9th to 12th of September is when I'm going to be around, as in when I'm without my husband, so I'm free to do what I want, anything Yanni related. So yeah, that pretty much covers it, I think. Yeah, wow, I finished pretty much at an hour, so I'm quite chuffed with that. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to tell you guys this week. If you have any questions for me, anything you'd like to know, there is a questions and suggestions thread in the Ravelry group, so just pop a comment in there and I'll be sure to answer your question next week. You can ask me pretty much anything, within reason, obviously. You can pretty much ask me anything and I'll likely answer it in the podcast. Answer the question that I asked you guys this week in the comments for this episode thread. Just come in, say hi, let me know what you're up to, and join in the cows if you're knitting anything remotely rainbow related. It doesn't have to be a true rainbow, but anything remotely rainbow related, multicolored, fun project, come join the Rainbow Cow. Come join the Sunrays Cow. It's a really fun project. And if you are interested in potentially test knitting for me, either shawls or other garments, I have some other sort of accessories ideas for test knitting. For patterns that I will need test knitters for. Just send me a PM on Ravelry and let me know if you would be interested and what sort of thing you'll be interested in knitting. Then I will bear that in mind when it comes to asking for test knitters, and I'll come to you guys first and just let me know if you're interested. So yeah, thank you for tuning in and spending some time with me today. Thank you for joining the Ravelry group and subscribing to the podcast if you have done so. And yeah, thank you to all of you who send me messages every week. It's always lovely to hear from you guys. So that's it for today, and have a lovely week, and I hope to see you guys next week. Bye.